Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan and welcome to the latest episode of our entertainment show. As you know, all this month we're looking at cult classic features, and for the month of May, the feature in question is Starsky and Hutch. Obviously Starsky and Hutch, a major TV series, a detective show from the 1970s, which ran for 4 years, 1974 to 1979. And each day this week, we're speaking to a guest star who appeared on the show, on the series, to remember their memories of their time on set of Starsky and Hutch and their memories of interacting with David Soul and Paul Michael Glaser. For today's episode, we go to season 3, episode 16. The episode was called Satan's Witches. It aired on February the 8th, 1978, and it was an episode where Starsky and Hutch went to a retreat out in the wilderness, out in the camps, out camping on a cabin, and across the lake they came across a cult, one of those vigorous cults that were all the thing back in the 60s and 50s in America. And obviously this cult had bad intentions, and one of the women of this cult is our special guest this evening. She played the role of Tricia Martin, a sort of vixen up to no good in terms of delivering, let's say, an animal with a nasty sort of a bite on the footsteps of Starsky and Hutch, the one and only Jere Rae Mansfield. And Jere, 1978, I suppose it almost feels like a lifetime ago in terms of trying to conjure up memories for your time on Starsky and Hutch. But when you close your eyes sometimes, and maybe when you see Starsky and Hutch on TV, can you almost go back there and sort of relive those sort of memories of that time?
Oh, those were the best days. I mean, television was so active and there were so many shows to choose from. And I very fortunately had a great career, getting to do a lot of things on a lot of those shows. I had worked in Japan for a while as well. And so when I came back, it was just wonderful to be treated so nicely on shows, and especially shows like Starsky and Hutch. I mean, they treated their talent wonderfully. The crew was always happy. There was always someone sitting around with a guitar. And yes, I think back on these memories all the time. I mean, I listened to David Soul on music and whatnot, and of course, support Paul's charity very vigorously. And yeah, those days were just nice. I mean, I had a girlfriend out of that show that we were best friends for years and years.
Okay. Yeah, and I mentioned some of the cast members on that show were Charles Napier. He played Sheriff Joe Rice. Then we had the Soul cult leader, Robert Sutton, who played Cabot. And you mentioned some of the girls, Bess Gatewood and Lack Yeb were one of the two sort of actresses as well that appeared on that show. Jere, in terms of the whole sort of cult thing in the 1950s and 1960s, when you got your sort of guest role for Starsky and Hutch, were you sort of aware of that sort of thing that was going on, that sort of excite you, playing a sort of a groupie, sort of a hippie, sort of a cultster?
Well, I went to school in south of San Francisco in a school called Hillsborough in Burlingame. And that was the year of my 10th high school reunion. So there were a lot of memories of that hippiedom era. And so I just could fall right into that part. It was very easy to romanticize about it.
Yeah, and I suppose at that time you were playing sort of a young type cheerleader type, a young sort of a vixen with sort of intentions up to no good. Were there sort of the popular roles in terms of the TV series in the 1970s, the sort of young sort of rupturous sort of girls that are either sort of playful and boisterous in terms of leading on the sort of male talent?
It was a lot of fun. And, we didn't have the issues that we had then, or didn't realize the issues that we had then, and that we might be creating a bad image, but we were having a lot of fun. I did have the opportunity to play a police officer on Chips, the first season that Chips ran. And I had the recurring role of the only female CHP which was very innovative and came with a lot of rules and regulations. So I think that started around then too, that there began to be women in positions that they wouldn't be. But that was kind of fun. I think I'm actually going to put Vixen with, what did you say, Vixen up to no good or something like that? I think I'm going to put that on my business card.
Fixing up to no good. And Jere, in terms of the characters that Paul Michael Glazier and David Soul played, they were very sort of playful and boldful on set in terms of their words and sort of their lines. Were they very much that type of those characters offset when the camera stopped rolling as well in terms of interaction with the cast members?
Well, first off, they were very professional. So yes, but they were always teasing. There were the pranks. There were they had a great sarcastic sort of sense of humor to trade back and forth, which I'm a big fan of and participate in as well. And so they were mostly, I can just say they were kind to all of their stars, their talent, their crew. And I just remember it being such a great set to work on. We had to work, that was a particularly hard shoot because we had night shooting and it was cold, was very, very cold. And we were in these long woolen robes, which were first itchy. And our instructions were, two of us, Deborah and I at least, had instructions that we were supposed to be entirely naked under these robes because of the role and whatnot. And we were in the forest and we were in the woods, and I'd worked enough shows to know that there was absolutely no way anyone was going to know I was entirely naked under those robes. So of course I was in long johns and a shirt and things under the robes to keep myself cold because it was very cold. And we're out shooting one of the scenes, and they had them build a little campfire, or not an open fire, but a little warming stove for us to keep warm by. So that was very considerate. And then at one point in time, I looked over at Deborah, and her lips were very blue. And I said, I know it's cold, but you can't be that cold. And she said, well, I'm naked. And I remember laughing and going,
she took the instructions to heart. So
yes. And it was, it was just one of the things that they did on the show, things like that. And all the shows were full of little things like that. I mean, whenever I did a TV series, when we would go to Vegas, there would always be some sort of prank. They would leave me, I would be dead, and they would leave me under a sheet, and everyone would go to lunch. So the shows were always full of little pranks like that, and everyone took it in good nature. It was just fun. I mean, we were.
And Jere, you mentioned there about filming. It was very cool. Where did you actually shoot that episode? And did you stay in that sort of locality for the week? Was it a remote sort of rural area? Were you close by to set?
The great thing about Los Angeles is within 4 hours, you can be anywhere. You can be in the mountains skiing and drive back down and hit a wave on the beach. It's just a miraculous place to live. Expensive, but a miraculous place to live. And no, we drove in every day. Okay. And nights. We didn't camp over that night.
Okay. And in terms of interacting with the other sort of guest stars, I suppose you would have interacted a bit with Robert Sutton, who played the role of Cabot. What was Robert like? I suppose a very veteran of his craft. I suppose a senior sort of a guest star to come into that sort of a role.
Still in all, there's a little trepidation, as you mentioned, because, senior, and there's a little trepidation, but again, just so friendly and nice and giving. And that's the best I can say. I mean, just giving and warm. I just have to say, Starsky Hutch was really one of the most giving crew sets. Everyone worried about anybody. I never heard harsh words. I was on the set. David and I were doing another project, and so I was on the sets more when I would just go visit and whatnot. And though they did lock me in my trailer once, okay. Accidentally. I thought it was a prank, but they accidentally locked me in my trailer once.
And Jere, in terms of Starsky & Hutch, obviously it aired your episode in February the 8th, 1978. Were you aware when it was airing? Did you have any sort of notice, or were you just watching cable TV like everyone else and just wondering, when is my episode going to appear live? Or what was the reaction or sort of family reaction when were you able to even tell your family back in 1978 that your episode was appearing on cable TV?
Well, it was fun. Well, cable was new, as you know, and so that was interesting because we had a different sort of setup to be able to watch it. I don't believe we were recording at that time, but we might have been. And no, I got a phone call. The production team is always very good about giving you a phone call. Today they would send a text or an email, but yeah, we all got phone calls letting us know when it was airing, so we could tell everyone.
And once you finished on the set of Starsky and Hutch, and once it was a wrap in terms of the shooting, did you ever, you mentioned there about sponsoring Dave, listening to David's podcast and sponsoring Paul Michael Glazier's work in terms of his art division. Did you sort of keep in close contact with both stars, and did you actually get to work with them again in the future?
David and I were working on some project things that we never actually got done. I didn't get to work with Paul again. He got very busy, and that was really nice. I began to travel a lot and work abroad, which is something I'd always wanted to do. I'd always wanted to travel, and my children were of the age where I could travel more freely. And so, no, we never worked together again. David and I did a lot of talking about working together again and planning things, but we never did anything.
And Jere, in terms of being on Starsky and Hutch as a young actress in 1978, did it open up doors for you, having that on your credits, having that on your CV for other sort of guest roles within the 80s?
It did. It actually did. I did. I used to say, someone wrote about me once that I died on every Aaron Spelling show ever made.
Okay.
I guess I did okay. Except I kept filling up.
Can I ask, I suppose it's been, you probably don't know off by hand, it's been a long time. Have you seen your episode of Starsky and Hutch within the last decade or so, or was it when we just arranged this interview, you sort of, I'll give a quick gawk over that again?
Well, I have a group of young ladies, and a shout out to them in Canada, who contacted me years ago, and they formed, they're my little groupies. I love them so. And they're always sending me clips of films and whatnot. And of course, I never did that. And I didn't realize that you could Google me, because I just didn't ever think about it. And so then at one point in time, I was at a film festival doing something, and someone said, you know, your PR lady didn't send a photograph, so we need a photograph. And I said, well, can't you just use my driver's license or whatever? And they said, no, and the girl said, I'll just grab it off Google. And I looked on the Google screen, and there are thousands of pictures of me, and I was horrified. And then this young group of young girls reached out to me, and they sent me a clip just recently of the Starsky and Hutch, Charlie's, all of those. They just start sending little clips of all the little things. And it makes me smile a lot to know that people still care in that generation. I mean, you know, we're a lot of years later here.
Yeah. And Jere, before I let you go, two more questions. Find second last question. In terms of Starsky and Hutch, if you to characterize your character, Tricia Martin, if she was put in an encyclopedia, a Starsky and Hutch encyclopedia, and they left two blank sentences underneath, and they asked you to write those sentences, how would you describe her?
I would describe her as having a degree in psychology, I would describe her as a troubled young woman. But as her character, I would describe her as a fun-loving, cult experiencing lady of the era.
Lady of the era. And finally, Jere Mansfield, have you ever been to Ireland? And if so, if not, is it on your bucket list? And if so, can you share a memory with us?
I have been to Ireland. I was there for the New Year's that didn't count as the Millennium New Year's. I had the lovely privilege of being at Versailles for the New Year's. And then in 2001, I was in the Ashford Castle.
Okay.
To ring in New Year's, and loved Ireland so much. We plan to go back because I haven't been to the other side, and I want to do that. And we were planning a trip for August actually, and that just got canceled. Okay. So we'll be there soon.
We'll be there soon, and we look forward to welcoming you, Jere Mansfield. On that note, Jere Mansfield, thanks for sharing your memories of your time on Starsky and Hutch. You appeared on the episode Satan's Witches, season 3, episode 16. You played the character Trish Martin, which aired on February the 8th, 1978. Jere, a pleasure talking to you this evening, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavours. And do check out the West Coast of Ireland fairly soon.
I will. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.